Hi everyone, I'm just back from seeing the Philippou Brothers' second feature, Bring Her Back, which I think is brilliant, and I also think it doesn't work, and I want to talk about both those things. The film is about a pair of orphaned children, played by Billy Barrett and Sora Wong, and they come from a family where I think the mother has died. I actually didn't completely follow that part of the plot. It's not explained. It's explained very quickly. It's not very important. But the father has died in the first scene. They find the father dead in the shower. And then they're fostered out and they're placed with a character played by Sally Hawkins called Laura, who is, it seems at first, a kind of ditzy Earth Mother type, but who is rapidly revealed to be something much, much darker, creepier, crueler, and more violent. It is a horror movie. It's not entirely clear, and I like this about it, to what extent it is or isn't a supernatural horror movie. It has all sorts of antecedents and ancestors from, I think, those, what are they called, those biddy psycho biddy films, right? So they're things like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and Woman in a Cage, films like this, which were about middle-aged women going crazy and normally identified in some way with a space, like a house, for example, as in this film, where the foster home is the limit of the world, and a white circle of chalk is drawn around the edges. But also, I kept thinking about Psycho, the more famous version of the Psycho archetype, where a local community is unaware that the apparently respectable person living in this house is living a separate, weird, uh, psychotic existence where they have a split off personality. Um, and then also, honestly, films like Hereditary and that kind of recent resurgence of horror movies, The Babadook, which I think the brothers crewed on that film as well. You can see all of them in there. What is this film doing with them? Well, it's adopting the melodramatic aesthetics of the Psycho Biddy movie. It is adopting the literalism of the horror movie. These brothers, I mean, I love their career story. They start out making wrestling videos on YouTube and they end up as filmmakers. It's a great trajectory, and it's particularly great because they have such incredible filmmaking chops, such wonderful imagination, such brilliant use of colour, mainly red and green in this film. And they've already shown all of those abilities in their first film, Talk to Me. I always want to call it Talk to Her after the Almodovar film, but it's Talk to Me. And that was a horrific film that absolutely terrified me. This one scared me less. It disgusted me much more. Here's why. The aesthetic they have put so much attention into is the aesthetic of melodrama. It goes right back to expressionist art. Just to put a pretentious hat on for a second, but I think it's true, go back to Edvard Munch and The Scream, and you can see how early film sometimes draws on those kinds of expressionist aesthetics. For example, you have The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which almost feels like it happens inside a Munch painting. You have a world in which the meaning of that world and the emotional meaning of that world is turned inside out and faces the viewer. So you're almost looking at the symbol and not at the thing. Everything is hyper theatricalized and in your face. And then, where does that kind of filmmaking go? You could argue it's in all film to some extent because film is a very explicit medium. Everything has to be visible. But I think it really branched off into the kind of melodramatic subgenres, like the kind of films made by Otto Preminger and by Powell and Pressburger, which really focus on colour and the rendition through whatever extravagant formal means of the interior life of the protagonist. So here we have this inheritor of that, just as the horror genre inherits Gothic aesthetics, which start out as theatre architecture. I mean, they start out as, kind of backdrop scenery to Grand Guignol. And this is exactly what we're in here, is Grand Guignol. everything is literal, violent, and extreme. Okay, so you want your dead child back, which is the story of the Sally Hawkins character. Uh, okay, well, it's not going to happen through some kind of emotional resolution that's entirely internal. You're going to need to play that out using the bodies of living children. We're going to need to see all of that. Melodrama literalizes, horror as well literalizes. You put them together in that expressionist mode, and you get an extremely visceral, literal, embodied kind of filmmaking. And I would just say, when it comes to this film, which is really about the death of a child and the terrible physical abuse of two other children by this woman, I don't think the horror, I don't think melodrama works very well when what you're dealing with is already horrific. I mean, it can work if there's an element of humour about it, as there actually is in the biddy psycho kind of genre, or the psycho biddy. I keep getting it muddled. I can never remember which way around it is. Whichever it is, whether it's like a username like Biddy Psycho, I don't know. But that genre of film, I like it because there's an element of humour. It lets in the camp. That is not possible with this kind of film because of the subject matter. As a result of which, I always say when I'm teaching, which is one of the things I do to make a living, I always say to my students, you can write a sonnet about a car park. You can do it, but you can't pretend that has no impact on how we read it. You can be as formally playful as you like. You can be as in love with aesthetics as you like, but you still have to confront the actual object about which you're writing. It is out there, and the meaning of your work is in the meeting ground between those things. So the sonnet to a car park is always going to be about something other than the car park. It's going to be about, this is an ironic sonnet, or maybe this is a sonnet about an experience that you had in a car park. But whatever it is, it can't come out as a straight love poem. Something has to happen in the language to reflect the fact that it's about an unusual subject. And I would say the same about this film. You can make an expressive melodrama, but if what that camera is meeting is the abuse of children, then you have to be aware, you have to build in somewhere some consciousness of the ethics of that. Because aesthetics do not exist independently of ethics. I'm not a massive conservative about these things. I'm in favour of freedom of expression, but to really get your aesthetics working, you have to be conscious of their object. And this film treats the abuse of children as if it were like any other horrific subject, the result of which is that the flinch that it creates is unearned by the story. It's earned by the subject matter, but it's actually unearned by the treatment, because of course I'm flinching. It's not interesting. It's too literal. And so it works aesthetically. It's an incredibly clever take on the expressionist history of horror. These are very, very talented filmmakers, but it doesn't actually work as a film. They need to think more carefully about what their relationship to their subject matter is. That is my slightly finger-wagging take on this film. I went really academic today. I don't know what came over me, but go and watch it if you've got a strong stomach and you're really up for this material. Thanks a lot.